Before solving multi-step equations, let's do a little review. When multiplying or dividing integers, or those numbers with negative signs, simply count the signs. Count the negative symbols. If there's one negative symbol, the answer is negative. If there are two negative symbols, then the answer is positive. You can think of it as two negatives cancel each other. One negative is negative, two negatives cancel. This works for both multiplying and dividing. Now, when we're combining or we're adding and subtracting integers, think of it that way. If they're the same sign, like you have two negatives, and remember that minus is the same thing as adding a negative, then you just add the signs, or you add the numbers rather. So 3 negatives and 4 negatives makes 7 negatives. All right, but when they're different signs, like one's a negative number, one's a positive number, you simply subtract them. So in this case, -7 and 2. You see, remember we talked about 0 pairs, and what's left? 5 negatives. 7 take away 2 is 5, and there are more negatives. Therefore, the answer is -5. Now, doing these multi-step, there can be up to 4 different steps. And always check to see if there's distributive property. Do that first. That's when you take the outside times the inside. Next, there may be some combining like terms. So like we have 4x and 5x, put those together. We also have our constants. Those are the numbers by themselves. And what we want to do is to get rid of those, we either add or subtract. Basically, you want to make the constant a 0. You're trying to make it a 0. And in this case, you would subtract 4 to make that a 0. But you'd have to do it to both sides. And the last step is to get rid of the coefficient. That's the number next to the variable. The number multiplied or dividing the variable. To get rid of that, you either multiply or divide. You want to make this a 1. Make this a 1. And those are the steps, in this order. Count any equation, you have a left side and a right side. We want the x by itself. Our first step is to get rid of the constant. To get rid of the constant, I want to make that a 0, add 8. That's now 0. Bring down the 2x. -20 and 8. They're different, so subtract them. 20 minus 8. And there's more negative. You might be able to see the answer. If you cannot, to get rid of this, the coefficient, you want to make that a 1 divided by 2. That's what makes this a 1. But you have to do the same the other side. Leaves us with x. 2 goes into 12. And there's 1 negative. To check it, place this back in there to see if it works. If I place -6 right there, this becomes -12. And -12 and -8 makes -20. It works. Okay, we have a left and a right side with the letter by itself. The first step, get rid of this constant to make this a 0. Just add 6. This is now gone. That's 0. I'll bring down the 5x equals 44 and 6. You should be able to see your answer now. But if you don't, to get rid of this 5 here, to make it a 1, I'll divide it by 5. 5 goes into 50, 10. If I was to check it, I put a 10 for the x. 5 times 10 is 50. 50 minus 6 equals 44. It is correct. Our answer is right. Our first step is distributive property. -2 times that, and -2 times this, times everything inside. So that's going to give us 2 times 2, that's 4x, and there's one negative. 2 times 8, and there's one negative. Okay, our next step, get rid of the constant. This is the constant. To make that a 0, now that's 0. Bring the rest down. On this side, 20 and 16. You may be able to see your answer. If not, you need to get rid of this -4. You want to make it a 1. To do that, to make this -4 a 1, you divide by -4. See, that's 1. 1 times x is x. Over on the right side, 4 goes into 36 9 times, and there's one negative. To check it, just take -9, plug it in there, and you will see it should work out. So looking here, I notice I have distributive first. Remember, we have a left and right side. Distributive first. That's -2 times, that's the invisible 1, and -2 times 9. So 2 times 1 is 2, and there's one negative. 2 times 9, and there's one negative. Bring the rest down. Next step. Oh, I see that I have like terms. I have these two, 4x minus 2x. It's 2x. Bring the rest down. Next step, we want to get rid of the constant. The constant is -18. Make that a 0. That's 0. Bring the rest down. Six and 18. Should be able to see your answer. If not, the next step would be to make this a 1 by dividing by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. But you have to do the other side. 2 goes into 24, 12. To check, take 12, plug it in there to see if it get the right answer. To see if the left side equals the right side. Okay, we have a left and right side. I have distributive property, parentheses. That is not a 4, that's a -4. Think of it as -4. Outside times inside, everything inside. 4 times 2, and there's one negative. I'll multiply with one negative. 4 times 1, and this time I'll multiply with two negatives. Two negatives cancel. Bring the rest down. Okay, notice I have some like terms. I have a 9 and a plus 4. Okay, 9 and 4 makes 13. I'll bring down the minus 8x. Next step, get rid of the constant. Make it a 0. That's 13. I want to make this 13 a 0. If I subtract 13, that's now 0. Bring the rest down. 45 minus 13. Okay, if you can't tell your answer, go to the next step. Get rid of the coefficient. To get rid of that, to make that a 1, divide by the same number. See, that's 1. And that gives you an x. Eight goes into 32, 4, and there's one negative. To check it, place negative 4 in here, up at the top, back in there to see if it works, to see if the left side will equal the right side.